The boarding gate was buzzing with the usual chaos of a busy airport when something happened that nobody expected. A black billionaire, known for his calm presence and sharp mind, walked onto the plane, ready to settle into his assigned first-class seat. But when he reached his row, he stopped in shock. Sitting there, without hesitation, was a white passenger who refused to move. What should have been a simple moment of courtesy quickly turned into an uncomfortable standoff. As passengers nearby pretended not to notice, while others secretly pulled out their phones to record, the billionaire politely explained that the seat was his, showing his boarding pass as proof. But instead of stepping aside, the passenger crossed his arms and insisted he was staying put. The air inside the plane grew heavy, with whispers spreading through the cabin. Some people wondered if the crew would step in, while others waited to see how the situation would unfold. The billionaire's silence spoke louder than words, and the tension could almost be felt in the air. No one could have predicted what would happen next. Just minutes later, an announcement crackled through the speakers, leaving everyone stunned. The flight they had all been waiting for was suddenly cancelled, and the truth behind why was even more shocking. The passengers sat in confusion, staring at each other as the captain's voice repeated the announcement. A flight being cancelled after everyone had boarded was unusual, but the timing made it feel even stranger. The black billionaire, still standing calmly beside his seat, didn't say much, but his presence commanded attention. People whispered, wondering who he really was, and why this scene felt bigger than just a seating dispute. Some thought it was just another delay, while others sensed that something important was unfolding right before their eyes. What many didn't know was that this man wasn't just wealthy, he was influential, a leader in industries that touched lives across continents. He was used to respect in boardrooms and conference halls, but here in the cabin, his dignity was quietly tested. The white passenger who had refused to move remained in the seat, leaning back as though he had won some sort of victory, unaware of the storm quietly brewing around him. Flight attendants moved up and down the aisle, their polite smiles not hiding the unease in their eyes. The other passengers grew restless, some pulling out their phones to capture the unfolding drama. Questions swirled. Was the cancellation connected to the argument, or was something bigger happening behind the scenes? The answer was still unclear, but everyone could feel that this story was far from over. As the minutes dragged on, the tension inside the plane only grew heavier. The billionaire stayed composed, his boarding pass still in hand, a quiet reminder of the truth everyone could see, yet no one wanted to be the first to force the confrontation. Some passengers whispered that the airline staff should have stepped in immediately, while others argued that perhaps the passenger in the seat had a reason for refusing. The mystery deepened when the crew whispered among themselves, their radios crackling with messages they weren't ready to share with the cabin. In the back rows, a group of travelers debated the scene. One woman insisted it wasn't about a seat, it was about principle. Another man shook his head, saying the airline wouldn't cancel a full flight over such a small argument. But the way the flight attendants avoided direct answers made it clear that something else was unfolding behind the curtain. Meanwhile, the white passenger remained unmoved, his body language loud with defiance. Some passengers thought he looked nervous now, glancing at the attendants as though expecting backup. The billionaire, however, simply stood still, his silence carrying more weight than any argument. Was the cancellation a coincidence, or was it a deliberate decision to avoid what was quickly becoming a very public clash? The unanswered questions kept everyone on edge, waiting for the next move that could change everything. The cabin had grown so quiet that even the hum of the engines felt louder than usual. Everyone sat frozen, watching the silent standoff unfold in real time. The billionaire still hadn't taken his seat, his calm posture masking the storm that many suspected was brewing inside. The white passenger, still rooted in place, shifted uncomfortably now, his earlier confidence slowly giving way to unease as he realized this wasn't fading into the background like he might have expected. Then the captain's door opened. For a brief moment, the cabin stirred with nervous energy as the captain stepped out. Speaking quietly to the crew before his eyes landed on the scene at the front, every passenger leaned forward, straining to catch even a fragment of the exchange. The billionaire said nothing, holding out his boarding pass with the same quiet dignity he had from the start. The air around them felt charged, as if the next few seconds could decide everything. Phones were now raised higher, passengers recording what felt like history in the making. Whispers turned into rapid speculation. Was the airline about to remove someone? Was security on its way? Or had the decision to cancel the flight been made for reasons far more complex than anyone could see? The suspense reached its peak, every heartbeat in the cabin waiting for the captain's next words, knowing they would change the entire direction of the story. Before the captain could even speak, another announcement echoed through the speakers, this time sharper, almost urgent. The words made every passenger glance at one another in shock. The flight wasn't just cancelled, it was being delayed indefinitely for security reasons. The vague explanation only deepened the mystery, and the whispers in the cabin turned into nervous chatter. What had begun as a dispute over a seat now felt like something much bigger. The billionaire lowered his hand, slipping the boarding pass back into his jacket pocket, his eyes steady but unreadable. He seemed to know more than he was saying, which only added to the weight of the moment. The white passenger, however, grew visibly restless, his earlier stubbornness cracking as he shifted in the seat, avoiding the eyes of those recording. Suddenly, some passengers began to suspect that the cancellation had less to do with the billionaire himself, and more to do with the man refusing to move. The crew whispered in hushed tones at the front, their radios buzzing again, this time louder, more frequent. Passengers leaned into the aisle, straining to hear, had someone been flagged on the flight? Was there a security alert tied to this confrontation? The uncertainty spread like wildfire, turning what looked like a personal dispute into something with far-reaching consequences. The tension was no longer just about a stolen seat, it was about a secret no one had expected, and everyone knew the real story was only just beginning. The captain finally stepped closer, his voice firm but calm. As he addressed the passengers, all eyes were on him, the cabin holding its breath. He explained that the flight had been cancelled for safety, but then turned directly to the row where the billionaire and the white passenger stood locked in silent conflict. With a quiet authority, he asked the man in the seat to stand. The billionaire remained still, his expression unchanged, while the other passenger hesitated, gripping the armrest tightly. Moments later, 2 uniformed security officers entered the plane. The mood shifted instantly, phones rose higher, passengers gasped, and the whispers fell into silence. The officers walked directly to the seat, bypassing the billionaire entirely. It was now clear, the flight's cancellation had nothing to do with the man standing, but everything to do with the one sitting where he didn't belong. The white passenger's face paled as the officer spoke to him quietly, before escorting him out under the gaze of dozens of recording phones. The cabin erupted in murmurs, some relieved, others stunned. The billionaire calmly took his rightful seat, still without a single raised word, his dignity speaking louder than any argument. But just as passengers thought the drama was over, the captain added one final shock: this flight wasn't cancelled after all. It was being reboarded under new security checks, leaving everyone to wonder what secrets had almost gone unnoticed in plain sight. The cabin slowly returned to order, though the echoes of what had just happened lingered in every corner. Passengers whispered about the unexpected twist, piecing together fragments of what they had seen. Many were relieved that the disruption had been handled with calm precision, but there was no denying the unease left behind. The billionaire sat quietly in his seat, never needing to defend himself with words. His patience and composure had spoken louder than any confrontation could have, leaving a lasting impression on everyone who had witnessed the scene. As the flight attendants moved through the aisles, reassuring passengers and preparing for reboarding, people reflected on what had unfolded. What began as a simple seat dispute revealed something deeper about respect, dignity, and how moments of silence can carry immense strength. For many, it was a reminder that true power isn't always loud, it can be steady, controlled, and undeniable. Man who had refused to move was gone, the mystery surrounding him left unanswered, but the lesson remained clear. The flight would continue, but the story would travel far beyond the plane, shared in conversations, news feeds, and videos replayed countless times. And for those who had been there, it was more than a viral moment. It was a reminder of how quickly ordinary events can shift into history.